everybody, welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Nephilim look like clowns with a focus on the Phantom Clown Scare of 1981. Now, once again, I thought I was retired, but I came across some more information that I found really interesting, so I wanted to present it to you guys. Maybe you'll feel the same way. So let's get into it. Now, prior to 2016, the clown panic, I wasn't aware of any other clown scares in our past, but turns out in 1981 that was the precursor to what happened in 2016. And you have articles like this talking about these phantom clowns terrorizing the US since 1981, and there's other articles saying the creepy clown sightings actually started in the 80s. And I just put together several of these articles just mentioning how the clown scare of 1981 might have started in Massachusetts and it appeared across Boston. So there is an interesting aspect to this clown scare of 1981, because when we start to look at it and then look at what happened in 2016, we're going to see a whole lot of similarities. And it almost looks like in both cases, a lot of this has been engineered. So we're going to look at that. So we have these sightings of clowns in 1981 primarily. So let's get a little more detailed information from some of these articles. Basically, you had children were reporting that evil clowns attempted to lure them into vans. And the clowns were actually never seen by adults. And there were no arrests, no photographs, and no evidence, and no abductions. And this person here, Loren Coleman, I guess he coined the term phantom clowns. But to this day, the 1981 phantom clowns remains a total mystery. Okay, so we've got all these sightings of clowns by children, and these clowns are attempting to lure children into vans. That'll come into play later. And back in 2016, they interviewed this person again, this Loren Coleman. He was just talking about the phantom clown theory that dates back to 1981. Okay, so what was the other thing that happened in early 1980s as well? You had, and I'm just going to refer to it as the panic, just to try to avoid the algorithm, but there was a lot of concern and a lot of panic with regards to this right here. So that was the second thing that was going on in and around that time frame. And the third thing, as you can see here, you had the rise of Dungeons and Dragons. How Dungeons and Dragons became a part of the 1980s panic. What I'm trying to lay out, there's a whole chain of events here. You have these clown sightings. You have the rise of this panic, and then you also have the rise and the spread of Dungeons and Dragons. And it turned out that there was a book written in 1981 called Mazes and Monsters, and they adapted that into a made-for-TV movie called Mazes and Monsters. And it featured actually Tom Hanks. I think it was maybe his first starring role. But interesting thing about that book cover, looks a little suspect, doesn't it? If we turn it on its side, an interesting number. But getting back to the made-for-TV movie, Mazes and Monsters, they actually flashed this graphic right at the beginning of the movie. So just an interesting side note. But another thing about the whole Mazes and Monsters and what happened around this time, there was a missing student who they believed was lost in tunnels, and there was a big media frenzy around it. There was a search to find this person who went missing, the student, and it turned out that I guess he wasn't down there, but the media was running with it anyway, and just a big debacle. But tunnels features into this as well. There's a big focus on tunnels, on Dungeons and Dragons, and on the panic, and on the clown sightings. And also what happens after all of this, after the clown scare, you have the release of Stephen King's It. Now it's a little bit later, 5 years after the clown scare of 81, but Pennywise is introduced after the fact. So that's an interesting chain of events. Well, let's flash forward to 2016 when you had the clown panic of that year. So police were on alert as clowns tried to lure children into the woods. So we had in 1981, there were clowns trying to lure children into vans, and 2016, clowns trying to lure children into the woods. And crisis got so bad, the White House was deferring to the FBI. Stephen King hits hysteria, and apparently the World Clown Association is not happy, or was not happy, about these people dressing up as clowns. Now, you had this craze was sweeping social media, including Twitter. So we had all these clown sightings once again. And just like in 1981, then what else went viral in 2016? I'm not going to use this word. I'm just going to say gate, try to avoid the algorithm. But this whole situation involving gate happened and went viral. And it was actually referred to as the panic of our age. So the panic related to this subject ramped up again in 2016, just like it did in 1981. Interesting. And there was another offshoot of the gate, and that is underground tunnels. Once again, these things just keep popping back up. So again, I think all this, it's engineered. I don't doubt there's a reality to a lot of these things. I'm not saying there's no truth in them. I'm just saying they were being spread by the mainstream, and they're fanning the flames. Now, what happens after these things? What else happens in 2016? You have the release of Stranger Things. And what is a aspect of Stranger Things? It is Dungeons and Dragons. You had the real star of Stranger Things is Dungeons and Dragons. So the rise in popularity of Dungeons and Dragons is a direct result of Stranger Things. And they're still, I think, in season 4 of Stranger Things. It's even featured a little more prominently. It's just the timing of it all, it's just so interesting. We got, just like in 81, we have the clowns trying to lure children, all the clown sightings. Then we have the rise of this panic that goes viral due to this, and it involves these tunnels as well. And then we have the Stranger Thing rolls out, and they reintroduce Dungeons and Dragons to the mainstream once again. And what comes after this, the next year, the movie It is it comes back to the big screen. And there's just these eerie similarities. And I don't think they're just coincidences. I think this was crafted. I think these events were crafted. And this is just an article. I guess because of release of the movie in 2017, people were interested in getting their hands on the 1986 novel, It by Stephen King. And this is just some bookstore in London, Ontario, saying they were out of the book from 1986. So just fascinating. Like I just never really, I didn't even know about the 1981 scare. And I didn't realize they're all the similar events, the panic, Dungeons and Dragons, the clown sightings, tunnels, and the release of the book. And in 2016 and 17, you have the movie instead of the book. Just wild stuff. So I just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention, and I think I'll leave it here with that. But let me just do a quick update on B.O.B. Now, somebody mentioned this song that came out by Outkast called Bombs Over Baghdad, and I've heard of this song. I just didn't know that it was actually also referred to as B.O.B., and it was written like this. I've never actually seen the video, but I've heard the song, but I wasn't aware that it was laid out like that. And of course, when you watch the video, there's just a ton of references to Bob, and you have the obligatory person with a painted white face. And I came across another song called the Bob Song that was sung by Willie Nelson, but it was actually first released by this duo, Big and Rich, in 2004. But some of the lyrics, it just talks about once knowing a pirate named Bob, and then actually spells out B.O.B. Bob, and then B.O.B. Bob again. So it's kind of this repetition. I just wonder if they're working these things into some of these songs, because B.O.B. pops up a lot. And this whole Bob Dobbs, I've mentioned this before, but this song from the Monkees called Zilch in 1967. It has this repetitive pattern with Bob and Bob Dobbs, and you can also see that, I think this was Del, the Funky Homo Sapien, Mr. Doublina. Some of the lyrics talk about Bob and Bob Dobbs again, and it repeats. And then there was the song by, Think for Yourself by the Cottonmouth Kings featuring the Insane Clown Posse, and there were some lyrics that were repetitive, talking about Mr. Bob Dobbs, Bob Doublina, all that stuff. So it appears in many, many songs, and you have to wonder what they're getting at. So that's all I have with regards to that, and I think that's about it for today. But I have an idea for one more video, actually, with regards to another subject, so I might have to hold off my semi-retirement once again. But I think that's it for today. I want to thank my patrons for all your help and support. Really appreciate all you guys, and thank you very much. So with that said, until next time, take care. Bye.